All right, guys. Anthony with Austin Historical Weapons Guild. Again, we are shooting in Vigilante here in Austin, our kind of new home away from home, letting us hang out while they get everything sorted out while this pandemic goes on. Today, building on Longsword, we're going to be talking about the final of the Master Strikes, the Shidle How. Shidle How is the scalping strike or the parting strike, and again, really breaks those rules, breaks those intentions of a good cut with structure and form and everything fun like that. Before we dive into this, though, we're going to kind of talk about what Shidle How breaks, what it's used against, and why that is useful, what that means. So Shidle How is used to break Elber, the Fool's Guard. Sword is down, sword is low. I'm going to get some light on there. So it's kind of used from, again, someone who's sitting in this low position. It is coming in high across the line vertically from here. And again, breaking those rules, a Shidle How used, especially in this instance, is kind of breaking that idea of we want structure. So again, a good structured cut from high, pulling through, lines about here, right? Pulling down, moving through those lines is this. A Shidle How, the way I like to do them, the way I find them most useful is instead of coming here and looking for this, bind the structure, this position from out, is it's coming high, and I like to throw a little bit heavy attention in this as well. So a Shidle How is talked about threatening the face and the scalp, and with a point, scraping the head, and with a turn, the face or the chest. So backing things up, Shidle How is used to break Elber, break this low position here. From Elber, the Fool's Guard, we don't do any attacking from this position. If we're going to attack, we have to go to a different guard, right? Making our thrusts, going high to catch, working down, or most likely we're going up into crown. So crown is described, your cross and your tip are above your head. You can take it as simple as low as something here. You can go full extreme, offing, and the He-Man She-Ra type poses like this. Anything high above, away structured is crown. And crown is a very strong, very useful position, and you often find yourself moving here, sometimes even unintentionally if you're unaware what's going on, when you get stuck in a bind and keep pressing in. So we're going to leave this up here for the time being. We kind of see, I make a bind, if I drive through and press up, I wind up in crown. So crown is useful because it gets your strong engaged really well. It sets you up in a position to grapple, to control, to manipulate the other person's weapon. You can use crown to then set aside into a thrust. Use crown to drop in to false edge, outside actions. Do lots of fun grappling, coming up, controlling arms, going into half sorting. There's lots and lots of great positions you can use from crown. And unfortunately, the pal I have, lacking a partner, there's not a lot to demonstrate nicely. Just knowing that as this cut's coming in from my left side, if I go catch it crown here, notice I can do this without even having to move. I'm extended out, so even if they're winding up with their point that 12 inches from my body, I'm easily passing it, catching up, driving in. I want to step in, I can catch. I can start working those cuts. You can start working things, sliding off, cutting around, right? You have a whole bunch of options. So it's important to acknowledge that crown, even though it's not really talked about a lot in the early German manuals, has a lot of uses, a lot of utility to it that is kind of hidden in the subtext, right? We really hear about crown in the Shidle How play where it's being broken, where it's being defeated. And that kind of leads people to assume that it's not a great position to be in. And I argue that no, they're talking about it in this instance because this is how you need to defeat that guard. Otherwise, it's very effective, it's very useful, and it really bleeds into a whole bunch of other intermediary actions, decisions, and flow trees that they talk about, I guess, almost discreetly off to the side, right? If you look at a lot of the Ringak, the Danzig manuscripts, there's all the set plays and there's all the ideas of fluent and bind work, and crown is kind of described in circularly around it, right? So crown has all these options, all these sets. That's working from the bind is working from this high bind here is working from crown, and really getting used to that and playing with that is where it becomes useful and helpful. However, crown is shown as being kind of broken and trapped and stuck. And I'm trying to demonstrate with the Pell here what that means, why that works, and how you defeat it with the Shuttle How, right? So Shuttle How is used to break Elber. Elber is, again, this low guard. Breaking guard doesn't mean it's a hit and it's a win. Breaking it means you get them out of that position, but on top of that, you're able to be in a better position to work from the after, right? So you're in control of the fight. You have a superior bind. You have better leverage, better mechanics, something along those lines. Is breaking the guard or moving out of position and putting them in an inferior position at the same time. When you're going from Elber, odds are they're coming up high to catch a cut. And once you're there, things start falling apart. So we know that Elber is this kind of, or crown is this kind of high position like this. We'll kind of pretend that I'll throw a cut right here at the corner of the cross here, so you can pretend the sword is pointed up. And it's just like Elber. If I throw a cut there with good structure, right? I'm here like this. I'm pretty stuck, right? I have a nice, strong right angle to my sword in my hands. As I apply leverage, I can't really do anything. I can't twist around. There's not a whole lot. Maybe if I really pull back and disengage, but there's huge opening, huge tempo I'm creating for my opponent to take advantage of, right? So if I'm throwing these cuts here and I get stuck on this position and I can't push through, the only option I really have is start pulling my sword away, right? I can't really wind here and get anything useful because now it tips up there and nothing exciting is happening. And there's a whole lot of bad choices for me when I catch, or my cut is cut in a crown-like position. However, if I'm using a Shuttle How, again, we start really breaking those rules of a good cut, right? I no longer have structure. I'm extending this, I'm reaching this out. And all of a sudden you see my arms are straight. I'm much deeper on my target, right? My normal cut, I'm just catching with the very tip of the sword. Shuttle How, I've extended past, and I'm really putting pressure on, really doing something. So here, if I turn my sword, especially with that follow-through step, now I have a whole lot more angle to drive through and make happen, right? Where with this cut, there's not a lot going on. Maybe I pull back and, right, things here. I do this with the Shuttle How and twist. Now I have control. I've gone around their blade, over their blade, being able to pull myself through to making that attack. And that's where that interpretation, that discussion of, yes, it's a threat to the scalp, coming in high, coming in vertically, but the goal isn't really to hit here. If this strike hits, great. Not going to complain about it. The threat comes from this. So I've gone from locked by their weapon, unable to do anything. As I turn, especially being able to get high, I'm able to come over the top, drive down, lever through, and push. And that's where that is a threat to the face and chest with the turn. So what does this do against crown? How does that work? So you've got two real reactions when someone's going up in the crown to cover themselves. And I'll kind of make them as extreme as I can to delineate the differences. Someone who's has great awareness, great control, great distance management. If they go up high, they may just go here because they know that they don't need to go any higher. They can keep themselves nice and low, keep themselves braced and structured. And this cut, right? If I'm picking up a cut like this, right, I'm going to go just high enough to keep myself safe. And this is when that turn is going to be super effective, when that turn is going to come over the angle of the cut I've made and everything else. If I'm fighting someone much shorter than me, this may lock them out and the turn may not happen at all, right? So you need to be aware of who you're fighting, the distances in play, the angles in play, and how everything kind of meshes with those things, right? Right, if I'm much shorter than my pal, there's no amount of turn that's going to make this useful or helpful. Which brings us to the second half of the play, or the second option of people, right? Other people who you throw a cut at them, they just go, oh my God, my face. They go straight to the sky with everything. I don't care how tall you are, you're not going to get your sword over my cross to threaten me with that turn. So it gets the second half of the Shuttle How play. right? So I've thrown my cut, I've stepped, I've twisted, I've made my nice threat, and then they pop up higher and press around and really cover their head as this threat comes pointing in at them. So I'll demonstrate that by ducking. So here I've got my angle, they lift their sword, I don't have the angle anymore. As my sword is going up, all I do is I let it continue through and drive in with the slice. So again, I realize this is super cheesy demonstrating it with a Pel. I throw my shuttle out here, I get my twist, as their sword comes up, right? That's me ducking. I disengage around, drive in with that slice. And this I'm able to control their arms, slicing through, being able to drive and control the fight. So the slice may or may not end the fight, depending, sharps, clothing, tournament rules, things like that. But you have lots of great options. You can start slicing. With a slice, you can actually lever just because their arms are the weak and you have the strong. Press them down. You can always come off, strike again somewhere else. You have a whole bunch of options. But this really ties into the idea of, are you studying this as a martial art? Or are you studying this as a sport, right? So as the martial art, this is great, effective, super useful. This idea of being able to use it from here, you'll turn, and this comes around and slices. So you can kind of see the Pel really wants to move. I'm not putting any effort into this right now, but I've got my straight arms for my structure. I'm kind of turning from the hips as I step through, right? So you can see all that movement generated just in that little press. If you're going for more of a tournament where some tournaments will call slicing, some tournaments won't. I have no way of knowing, judging, letting you know what's going to happen. The slice is still a great option. Just keep in mind that this odds are is not going to get called as effective, so you really need to either work on a wrestling follow through, right? You can drive in, you can follow the pommel from the slice. As I said, you can even take that slice and effectively drive them down from here and bring the back edge back up. It really depends on who you're fighting, your size, your opponent's size, things like that. But just know that this drive to flow here will be very effective and very useful, giving you that time to find the next play, to find the next option in the fight that you're going to be taking. So really getting used to driving this in, driving this through. So Shiloh How again, looking at his long straight arm thing, with or without a step, your choice. From here, get that twist, get the sword down, able to drive it towards your opponent's face. When they inevitably bring their sword up, use their momentum to come around and slice their hands that are moving up with you. So it's really about finding that momentum, finding that flow of, as I go here to catch, as you put that point in my face, I'm pushing up higher. That's when you drop off, slice the arms, and can very easily follow through to here to press, attack, follow through. It's kind of, I think, everything I want to talk about tonight, really just digging into that idea of the Shiloh How. Other notes or things to think about with this is kind of starting to play with your footwork and your distance management, right? Here, I'll put my opponent back in Elver. So my opponent is here in kind of like an Elver-like position, right? I need to be aware, are they right-handed, are they left-handed? How does that play out? What's the range look like? So my opponent's head is probably back there somewhere, right? So I should be aware as I'm working the Pel, if this is lined up with my body, the body starts at the pommel. Let me pull that back in. There. The body starts back here somewhere. So just getting used to throwing this cut with your target, knowing where your target's going to be. I should throw this there. Right, like that. I can twist, engage, I can slice through. Other things you can think about and start playing with is that we are not looking for any kind of sword contact when we're driving against Elver, when we're trying to cut it against like this. Are they visible? That's fine. So as I'm doing this, I want to be focusing on, I don't want to just step straight in, right? One of the problems with Kima is it's safe. It's arguably too safe. If someone has a sharp sword and they swing it at your head, you're not going to say, like, I bet I can stab him in the stomach before he hits me. You're going to say, oh, there's a sharp sword coming at my head. I should probably not be there anymore. However, you don't get that reaction very much, or all the time at least, when we're fencing, when we're playing this. Because again, this is a sport. This is not the martial art. And I'm not going to say, you should yell at people at a tournament who are fighting poorly, fighting dumb, fighting suicidally, going like, yeah, go ahead, strike me in the head. I'm going to strike. However, within reason, talk to your coaches, talk to your instructors, or if you're just in a group, talk to your training partners. Be like, hey, listen, I know what happened there. We should really talk about this and make sure we're all fencing the way we would be if this was real, right? Because I'm a firm believer that I'm practicing this as a martial art. I'm practicing this as some way to kind of focus myself and really just have fun with swords. I don't really care about winning. So I'm not going to, yeah, I can totally outstab this guy. He's like, no, he's swinging a sword at my head. I should do something to hide. And then from there, working the fight. So just be aware of all the master strikes. The Shadow How is the most susceptible to this kind of gaming, this kind of destruction of the art, where people will see, and you see it a lot, especially with newer fencers. And it just comes down to, honestly, training and mindset of, hey, the goal is not to get hit. The goal isn't hit the other guy. The goal is to avoid getting a sword in your face. And if you can really train that in yourselves and train that in your partners, a lot of this stuff becomes a lot more effective because you're treating it a lot more realistically. As soon as you start playing this game of like, yeah, I can probably dodge that and stab him in the stomach. Yeah, I bet if I kind of duck and go like this, I'll be okay. And I hope you laugh, but I've seen people do that where they just bring their face down to kicking level and hope to stab someone in the chest, because it doesn't work, because it's not realistic. And yes, it's important to be able to deal with those artifacts, to deal with those people. Same thing with those one-handed strikes everyone hears about. I'm not going to say they're useless, but they're not what I want to showcase in my art and my style and my fencing. So enough of the soapbox. Real takeaways, I hope, is Shadow How, getting used to this position, how that works, using it to apply against Crown, using Crown really well. It's got a lot of great choices, great options to it. The Dirklaufen comes from a Crown engagement that you then run through under. But again, if there are questions, feel free to reach out. Historical Weapons Guild on Facebook, historicalweaponsguild@gmail.com, Instagram, all that fun stuff, or just comments below. I'm sure I've got another 1 or 2 Longsword videos I want to get out, so no worries about that. I will have another Sword and Buckler on Monday, and otherwise, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you very much, guys.